Hey guys, it's Vanessa. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this cute Baby Yoda. Let's get started. So here's the picture that I used for inspiration for this topper. And just fair warning, this is the first time as I was filming this that I made this topper. So you'll see there's a few spots where I make a mistake, but that's just part of the learning process. So I hope you guys enjoy. So we're going to start off with a ball of light green fondant, and I'm just going to roll this between my hands and create on each side a point. And these are going to be his ears. So I'm using one ball of fondant to create his face and ears, but you can also do these separately. You can cut out his ears, shape them, and then glue them onto his head. I just chose to do it all from one piece. So I'm also pulling down on his ears just to get them the correct shape and position that I want them to be in. You'll notice I'm also pushing down on the top of his head, and this is because his head is more rectangular in shape. And then I'm just using my tool to create definition between his face and his ears, and also to create that flap that he does have on his ears. And there I'm just cutting off the bottoms of his ears just to get more of a sharp edge. Now I'm using the same tool and I'm creating an indent where I'm going to be placing his eyes, and then indents on either side of his face to define his cheeks. I'm then going to use my ball tool and create sockets for his eyes. Okay, so now this is where I sort of made a mistake. So I'm using my tool to create his eyebrow area. You'll notice he does have some wrinkles here, so I'm just trying to create a lifted up portion. So what I ended up doing instead of starting over is I just pushed the indents that I created close, and it actually ended up working out because now it just looks like he has wrinkles there. So I used that, and now I'm shaping his eyebrows to make them look sadder, and I'm also defining that wrinkle again, and to make it look less like a mistake. And I also created a line in between his eyes just to define those more. And now I'm using the other end of my Dresden tool to push out where his nose area is going to be, and to also create his mouth. Okay, and now I'm just taking the tool again and pushing the fondant to create a nose. And making sure as I go to smooth any hard lines that exist. And this is really important to do while the fondant is still soft and still pliable. And you'll notice that I keep going back and defining all the lines that I created before, just to make sure that those areas maintain their shape and their definition, especially his cheeks, because he does have very rounded cheeks. So here I'm just shaping his mouth to make it look a little bit more sad like it did in the picture, and again defining his cheek area. I mean, look at that sad little face. Okay, there again I'm just shaping his ears, trying to get them to the place that I want them to be. I really wanted the overlap on the top of his ears to be more defined, but I wasn't able to get that. But you'll see that I keep trying to work throughout the video, just trying to make that happen. But I still like the way that it came out. And again, just going back and defining his head area and his ear area and just creating some more definition there. Using my hands again to shape his face a little bit more. Next, I'm going to take 2 small balls of white fondant, and this is going to be for his eyes. So I realized that the fondant was a little bit too big, so I'm making it a little bit smaller, adding some water into the sockets, and then placing the ball there. Now his eyes are more almond shaped, so what I'm doing is I'm using my tool here just to create the shape for his eye, so it's less round. And now I am just placing his head aside as I'm going to do the iris now. So I'm going to roll out a flat piece of brown fondant as thin as I can get it, and then I'm going to use my circle cutter. Okay, I'm also going to place this on his eyes, on his face, so I know if there's any fondant where I'm going to be placing the brown that is going to be sticking out that I don't want. And there were areas of the white of his eye where I needed to just shape that and push that in a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm just adding the iris onto his eye. And I don't need any water or glue here because the fondant was very soft, so it just stuck on by itself. Okay, and next we're going to take 2 very small balls of green fondant, and this is going to be for his eyelid. We want to roll it out to a super thin sausage shape that is pointed on either end. We're then going to cut this in half and use 1 for each of the eyelids. So after you've cut it in half, again, you want to make sure that you shape the other cut end to a point. Then we're just going to add a little water, and then we're going to place the eyelids onto his eyes. Now I'm going to take some pink coloring dust and dust the inside of his ears. And you want it to be darker or more concentrated towards the corner of his ear and to become lighter as it goes out. And then we're just going to do the same thing on the other ear. And here I'm just using a little bit of cornstarch to help the coloring blend better when I apply it. So we're done with his head for now, but I will come back to do his pupils. But since I'm doing that in a colored food marker, I just want to wait for it to set a little bit more. So while that sets, I'm going to work on his body. So we're going to take a ball of tan fondant and roll it into a sort of cone shape, as you'll see here. Now I'm not too concerned with the wrinkles or the creases in it because he's going to be sitting down, or he is sitting down, and he's wearing a robe and it has a lot of wrinkles in it. I just figured I would just leave the lines there. So I cut out a chunk just to help it make it look like he was sitting down. And now I'm just shaping it. I'm adding in the crease where his lap will be. And also lines just to make it look more like it's fabric. Okay, and then you want to just push it up in the front, and this is where his feet are going to be placed. And now I'm just putting on his head just to make sure that it's the right size. Okay, and along the sides he does have some stitching, so I'm going to create an indent with my tool and then some stitching. And now I am adding a lollipop stick through the center, and again this provides some support for the body and for the head as well. Okay, and now we want to take a smaller ball of the same cream colored fondant, and this is going to be for the arms. So if you remember the picture that we had before, one of his arms is reaching out and one of them is down. So we're going to take the fondant, roll it into a cone shape, and then attach it to his body. And I do have the picture for reference off to the side that I keep looking at and referencing to make sure that everything is placed where it should be. So for his arm that's outstretched, I am using a toothpick to provide additional support. And I decided to put the pointy side out. This is because I'm going to be applying his hand, and it would just be easier to attach it to the pointed end versus the more blunt end of the toothpick. Take 2 small balls of green fondant, and these are for the hand, so you're going to flatten it out. Use a tool or a knife and create 3 separate fingers. Using your fingers to smooth out the edges. And now I'm just making a small indent for the palm of his hand. Use some edible glue to attach the hands to his body. Don't worry about how strange they look now. We're going to be adding some more fondant for his robe that is going to cover up most of his hands. And now we're going to work on the feet. So his feet are rather large, so we're going to use 2 balls of fondant, flatten them out. So we're going to do the same thing that we did with the hands and create 3 toes. And here again, I'm just testing to make sure that his feet fit nicely. But what I did realize is that the holes that I made were a little bit too deep, so I decided to add some additional fondant to the holes so that the feet can be placed on them. So it sort of looks like you can see his ankles. And again, we're going to just use some edible glue to make the attachments. Going back to the head now, we're going to add the pupils using an edible marker. And now his head is complete. Since his feet were so big, the glue wasn't really holding them on, so I just used my little cornflour bag to prop them up while that sets. So now I'm taking a piece of the tan fondant, rolling it out very thin and creating a strip which is going to go down the center of his robe. And I'm using this stitching tool in order to create stitch marks on the fabric and then just adding it to his robe. Now again, you want to take another ball of the tan fondant, roll it out, and this is going to be his collar. So we want to remove his head if you've put it on already. And then measure out the fondant to the size that you need. And next we're going to take a piece of tin foil that you just roll into a ball. And we're just going to pat it along the fondant in order to add texture. And then we're just going to add the piece. Now we're going to glue on his head. Next, we're going to do the collars on his sleeves. We're going to take another ball of the fondant, roll it out flat, and use the same tinfoil ball and use the same method to add the texture. Then you just want to measure it and then glue it on to his sleeves. And now we're going to add the reflections to his eyes. And to do this, you want to use two very small pieces of the white fondant. And finally, we're just going to add some more of the dust just to add some highlighting. So some of this, I didn't realize that my camera wasn't recording, so I'm just showing you here that this is what I used. I just used some brown food coloring dust, and what I did was I took the brown coloring dust and just added it to all the various cracks and crevices that were on his robe. Now we're going to take the pink coloring dust, the same one that we used for his ears, and we're just going to add that to his feet. And that's it, he's all done. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please make sure to give us a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. See you next time.